Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. How many times do you say that to yourself? Do you exalt God? Do you just reverence him? When you acknowledge by saying, Our Father, you're crying out, Abba, my source, my everything. And then we say, thy kingdom come, thine will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And when we say that, we're saying, Father, let your will be done. Let the earth look exactly like heaven. And in order to accomplish that, we have to say yes to what God has called us to do. Say yes to who we are. Say yes to God so that the earth can look exactly like heaven. How does that sound to you today? Welcome to Morning Motivation by Yolanda Felder Ministries. For this time in this season, you should find comfort in knowing that the Lord has spoken a word over your life, and it is going out to perform what it was set out to do, and it's not delayed. Welcome back. And today, I have a special guest that I know that you would want to hear from. Someone who said yes to God. Said yes to God from the very beginning. And I want you to just stay seated, press your ear to the set so you can enjoy this wonderful man of God. Let me introduce to you Reverend Dr. Henry Harrison of the Baptist House of Prayer. Hello, Reverend. How are you?
I am fine, Yolanda. I'm just pleased to be here with you.
Yes, and I am so grateful and honored that you are here with me, spending time with me today. You have an amazing story to share, and I just want you to share that. I mean, like, how you got started. How did you say yes to God and just moved out in that and staying grounded?
Yeah.
So from my understanding, you were a child singer. You are an artist.
I do sing.
Child preacher.
Yes.
That's somebody who said yes from the very beginning.
Yes.
Because most of us don't. God has to take us through a few things in order for us to say, okay, God, yes. But you surrendered early.
I did. Growing up in a Christian home, we were always going back and forth to church. In fact, someone said to my mother, she said, you're going to have that baby right here in church because you're in here all the time. And she was very pregnant at that time. So, I was always taken back and forth to church. And at a very young age, I used to use the back of the pew as my piano. I would watch the pianist play the piano, and I would be playing there, playing and mocking and humming the songs. So my mother realized that I could hold a tune at a young age, and so at 3 years old, I started singing in church.
Oh,
at
3.
At 3 years old, and they did one time, they had an old 78 recording that they made of me at 3 years old singing, in church. So it just evolved over and over, and I went to different churches to sing. And then when I was about 7 years old, and my mother said to me, Henry, you sang very well tonight. And I said, thank you very much. She said, but singing is not enough. You have to ask Jesus Christ to come into your heart and live in you. And I had heard that from the preacher. I heard it from my mother. She was my Sunday school teacher.
Oh, wow.
But
did you go to a large church?
No, very small church, a family church. And I knew that was true. So, and when I went to bed that night, I prayed and I said, Lord Jesus, come into my heart. And, the earth didn't move under my feet and there was no lightning or thunder. But based on his word, and he said, that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life.
Yes.
And so I accepted that. I joined the church that next Sunday, not even telling my family. And I was baptized at 7 years old. And there just this just kept right on going. My play many times was church in the home. I played church, and you know, because that was what we experienced, what we lived. And at 10 years old, someone asked me if I would preach a sermon, and I said sure. And he said, well, let me talk to your mother. And my he said, your son said he's going to preach for me. She said, well, I guess if he said he'll preach, he'll preach. He said, well, did he ever do it before? She said, well, not in public. And so he arranged for me to go to a church to preach, and on a Sunday evening, and my mother said, get the Bible, let's go over, what are you going to preach about? And I said, I want to preach about David and Goliath.
Wow.
And she said, why? I said, because David had faith in God. And she said, well, preach it, tell me the story. And I did, and I was ready to go out, and I did. And by the time my home church got word, I maybe preached about 3 times. And my pastor said, if you wanted to preach, you should have let me know. And I said, well, I didn't know. I just knew God called me to preach, and I was going to preach. And so the church then had a trial sermon for me, and I preached, and the church voted for me to be licensed. So at 10 years old, I was licensed as a preacher. And again, never stopping, just continued to go and grow. And of course, in schooling, and went to Bible college and some seminary training and things like that, which was all necessary. But the seed was planted, and actually, I think what God did in a marvelous way, and he does all things in a marvelous way. Yes, my mother wanted to preach before I was born. And I just turned 70 years old.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, God bless you.
And 70 years ago, they were not hearing about no women preachers, particularly in the Baptist church. So I believe that the Lord allowed her to fulfill her dream through me, because she taught me, she tutored me. She was a Bible teacher. She studied and had all kinds of certificates from different schools that she went to, Bible training, and very good. For 40 years, she was superintendent of Sunday school. Just taught and knew the Bible, read through the Bible every year, you know, from cover to cover. And among other things, then she was a nurse. Her profession was a nurse. So she did all of that, and, you know, reached out to people. And so that was my I had my grandmother lived with us, and my father, and was a deacon, and you know, the family was very close-knit and involved in the church. So I knew nothing else. And the Lord has just blessed me in that area.
How was it growing up?
Oh, interesting.
Because, you know, there are so many challenges, you know. There's nothing new under the sun.
Yes, there were.
So,
and, you know. Of course. But, you know, the real support was the home.
Right.
The home life was my anchor. And as I travel now, and I see so many different homes that are shattered and families that are dysfunctional and all that, but my home life was my haven, my safe haven. Before I started preaching, I had a church in my basement that I built. And I was to go there and preach, and I'd bring the neighborhood kids and I'd preach to them, you know, and everything I saw in church I would try to copy. But now in school, there were challenges. There were bullies then. And kids who didn't like you. but many times I sang all through school. And performed, and I remember the first song I sang. It was I was in third grade, and my third grade teacher taught me this song. They had, at that time, Negro History Week.
Oh, okay.
And then for a while they started calling it Brotherhood Week.
Was this in February?
Yeah, yeah. And after a while they went back to then Black History Week and then month. So they had this Brotherhood Week, and they were trying to show there was a play that said you should be kind to everybody. And I was always chubby, fat. And so, kids would pick on you because you were fat. It's okay today,
No,
and after.
not okay today either.
But it's in those days, it
right,
really
I
was,
understand, yes.
Fats and Skinny had a race, Fats fell down and broke his face.
Oh.
That was what they would taunt us like that.
Wow.
Fats and Skinny was laying in bed, Fats rolled over, and Skinny was dead. So you had to endure those jokes and the brunt of it.
Yeah.
But this play said you should be kind to people, and people are different. They have differences and all that. And so my song to sing was, and I remember it from the third grade. They always, always pick on me. They never, never let me be. I'm so very lonesome, awfully sad. It's a long time since I've been glad, but I know what I'll do by and by. I'll eat some worms and then I'll die. And when I'm gone, you wait and see. They'll all be sorry that they picked on me.
Wow.
That was my statement, and at that age in school, sharing that we need to learn to love each other. We need to accept each other. We need not to pick on somebody because they're fat or because they're black or because they may be disfigured or because they have a disability. You are the brother that they need, and we have Brotherhood Week, and we reach out and touch everybody because everybody needs each other.
Right.
And so singing in school made me kind of popular.
Okay.
And then I would be in church on Sunday and go to different churches, and some of the kids, they went to the same church. And so they would tell the class, oh, he preached at my church yesterday.
Ooh.
Or he sang at my church yesterday on Sunday. And so that had its popularity as well.
So did the bullying cease, the picking on you?
Not all the time, not always.
I mean, but not as much, right?
Not as much. And then there were times when, in those days, we had gangs in school. They still have them now, but they're much more vicious in what's going on now. But then they fought with chains and garbage can tops, the metal garbage can tops. But each block maybe had a gang, and that was their turf. And if you went in that area, you could get in trouble with them, or they would rob you or whatever. And so one of the things I tried to do in school, I went to Cooper Junior High School in Harlem, which is now Bethel Gospel Assembly Church on 120th Street and between 96th and 5th Avenue. Well, that was my junior high school.
Wow.
And, I would try to make friends with all the gang leaders. So then I didn't have to belong to a gang.
Right.
And then when I went on their turf, they said, oh, well, he's a deacon. Oh, he's the preacher, leave him alone. And they would let me go. It wouldn't bother me. Sometimes they would rob my friends because I hung around with a lot of little church boys, and we'd be walking together, and they would rob them and not rob me. They said, go, so you did. One day a guy came up, and he says, he wants to give me some money. I said, I don't have any money. He said, all I find I keep. I said, I put my hand in my pocket and I pulled out 3 pennies and I put them in his hand. I said, I'm giving this to you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And I'm going to pray God set your hand on fire. And he dropped the 3 cents and ran. Ooh. And he says, whoa, look. Well, again, I prayed. I learned to pray. I learned to trust God. I learned to, listen to him and to his voice, and always to be kind, and knew who I was and not ashamed. And so after a while, you just didn't pay. And when I went home, I would tell some of the problems I had. And my grandma said, well, we're going to pray about that.
Oh.
We're going to pray and ask God to protect you, and God's going to cover you, and God's going to keep you, and nothing happened to you. And so that satisfied me. That was
Right.
my solace, you know,
Right.
that, well, Mama said she's going to pray, and so we're just
Right.
going to leave it alone.
That's right.
And not retaliate. Those are some of the things that happened and some of the experiences I had as a child. And yet, again, preaching, I traveled in the South in the summer because my grandmother would go down to see her sisters and cousins, and then I preached down there, did revivals when I was 12, 13 years old, 5
Nice.
days. You know, now we have Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and we think that's a big sacrifice. Those days we had 5 nights, Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, revival.
Well, you know, it's funny that you say nowadays and back then, because the demand has changed
Yes.
on your life. So back then, you were thinking more and creating more from inside,
Yeah.
inside your household as well as inside of you.
Yes.
And now we're living in a time that's teaching us to look outside of ourselves and then to be bogged down with so much stuff that people could barely even make it to church on Sundays.
That's right.
Or even, you know, devote
There's so
one
many
day
things. Yes.
to church. And on top of that, even devoting even 10 minutes of scripture reading and worshiping
Right,
God. Just
right.
10 minutes a day
Because
will
there's
do
so many
it.
voices calling us today.
Yes,
so
and
many
it's on
things.
purpose.
Yes. Yeah.
It really,
yeah,
it's strategic and it's on purpose. So,
And
yeah.
it surely will, you know, there's an old hymn that says, nothing between my soul and my Savior. And whatever circumstances come in life, I'll let nothing between my relationship with God and myself. And we today allow all kinds of things and problems. And there are a lot of problems. And there are a lot of difficult things that happen to us in life. And many times
let me ask
we
you-
don't learn to pray and to really relax in God and trust Him.
So how do you think that the church can preserve that as well as reach the culture? So how do you think that the church can really preserve from the 20th century what's most important to carry into the 21st century church?
For one thing, the church has to always be alert to what is happening in the world and in the culture. Sometimes it seems as if the church people will put their head in the sand and not pay attention to what's going on. We want to stay traditional. We want things to be in the old way, and everything changes. Everything resolves. God never changes, but surely our presentation changes. I remind them that the sun rises every day at a different time because this change is inevitable.
Yes.
So when you're
How about
holding
that?
on to tradition or holding on to old things, you then stifle growth and change. And so what people are looking for today is something that is going to satisfy them, something that's going to help heal them, something that's going to really be stable for them. And they're searching in all kinds of ways. Whereas the church and the gospel, the good news
Yes.
of the gospel is the same,
Yes.
that God loves you. And He has a plan and a purpose for your life, and you can know that purpose and know that plan and have peace. We're searching for peace, and we
Exactly.
look for inner peace. Sometimes we don't have it. We look for it among our family and our friends. We try different styles and different things to have the peace, and we don't have it because that peace has to be internal and come from the inside out. You have to have peace of mind. So in order to get that, you listen to what God has said. He says, my peace I leave with you. I give you my peace. In the world, you're going to have trouble. You're going to have tribulation. You're going to have problems. And they come just like the new day, the dawning of a new day. At one point, Jesus said, don't worry about tomorrow. don't take thought. Don't be anxious. That's what he's saying. Relax and let me take care of it. Look at those birds. They don't sow, and they don't reap or harvest, but the Father takes care of them.
Yes. And aren't
look
we
at
more?
the lilies of the field.
Yes.
The flowers are beautiful.
Yes.
And they don't make clothing, they don't do all that, but they're beautiful because God takes care of them. He says, well, now you're more than a bird.
That's right.
You're more than a flower.
That's
if
right.
God takes care of them, he will take care of it, so relax.
Yes.
And we have really got to preach that kind of a message that people, this Christmas season now, I'm talking about hope. That Jesus came to bring us hope, because people don't have hope. They're ambling about, they're looking and they're searching, and he says, I will give you peace. Now, we have to relax in that, and you have to step back sometimes from yourself and realize you're vulnerable. You can't do it all. You can't make it happen. Right. And he says, you can't make one hair on your head turn from black to white. You can't add an inch to your height. You know, some things you just can't do. You have to just relax and accept them. And said, okay, Lord, I'm not going to worry about this. I'm going to take my time and I'm going to see what you're going to do. Will you help me in this situation? Will you make the way? I can't see the way. And we say oftentimes the Lord will make a way out of no way. There's nothing that seems to be there. And all of a sudden, the old Negro spiritual says, my soul looks back and wonder how I got over. How did I make it? Well, it had to be God to help us make it, because we can't do it on our own. So now in this world today, primarily, we're taught independence. You know, do it yourself. You're your own boss. Whatever feels good, do it. You know, and no one can tell you anything different. Well, there's certain things that sometimes you can do, but they don't get you where you want to go quickly. Sometimes habits that we form, they impede our progress. It's like we said about our food. Sometimes the foods that we eat are not good for us. And we just have to realize that. Now, you know, I shared something the other day. He said, well, my grandmother ate all this stuff. And I said, yeah, but your grandmother worked from sunrise to sunset. She burnt up probably everything that she ate, so it didn't have a chance to lay in her body and affect her as it does us today.
And the grounds were different. The air was different. And
the transportation,
seeds,
they walked.
everything. And not only that, but just the mode of transportation. There was no oil, smoke-filled cars.
That's right.
You know,
fuel,
and all of this,
emission.
fuel. I mean, to say, yes, how someone else lived back then in comparison to today, it's really different.
And
I mean,
we eat the food and then we sit down and watch television.
Even different, but the food is different.
We go outside the computer,
television,
and
computer.
You know we don't burn it off. We don't exercise, and so yeah, it's a difference.
It is.
And the food is absolutely all the additives and the chemicals.
Exactly.
Weren't there.
And you know, it's funny nowadays. The food is not yielding after its own kind. Like, you know, the Word of God says, you know, he spoke in the third day that every herb would yield seed, because in every seed is a tree that has fruit, that has seed, that has more, that has fruit, that has more seed. So it's cyclic, right? But nowadays, they're creating food, mixing things to create something,
and to feed us,
and feeding it to people, and lying, saying it's the soil, it's the water.
Listen, I am so distressed with some of these commercials about the medicines that they offer for a certain disease, and then they have someone running around, skipping around, and then underneath Subliminally, they're saying now this could cause all kinds of side effects. You might lose your hearing, you might lose your sight.
Yes.
You know, your kidneys, your liver can be affected. You may die from it. Can cause death.
But are you listening to that? No.
Yeah, I am.
No,
and I'm
I know
saying,
you are, but I'm saying, see, that is strategic because you're looking at an image of joy and peace, and you can be able to run, skip.
It's deceptive.
But in your ear, it's saying, but if you have liver issues, you can't have this, and if you do this, you do this, and if you really listen to it and not pay attention to the image across the screen, you won't take that medicine.
Well, that's exactly right. Because I'm saying, well,
legally,
gosh, this
they have
sounds
to tell
like
you.
It's worse than what I have.
Yeah.
I better keep what I have,
Yeah,
and rather than take something that's going to have such side effects.
Yeah.
And so things
you know what?
are different today.
Also, not to cut you off, but you know, I think when I see medicine and food, and I listen to so many people, older people who are taking even I'm 50, and I have friends my age. They're taking pressure medicine. They're eating a certain way. They revamp their entire diets because they have to take medicine. And I thank God that I don't. But the thing with that is, I look at that and I'm saying, why do you have to take medicine? You know, we shouldn't have to take medicine if we hold people accountable. If I voted you into a certain position of authority and influence, I expect you to make sure that the soil is taken care of, that the water is running properly. These are the things that I expect you to do because I voted you in.
Wow.
And if you're not doing your job, like any one of us, if we don't do our job, you'll be unemployed. Perhaps that's what we need to start doing to the politicians. Making them uphold the position that they're in. Because you know what? There's no need for anyone to be taking medicine. You shouldn't have to take medicine if the animals are fed properly, if the soil is toiled and done up properly. You know, if you're not putting out poison in the animals and in the water, because what it's doing is it's tearing down the earth, and the earth is wealthy. God created the heavens and the earth, and the earth is very wealthy. So if you're stripping from the earth, you're trying to deplete that and bring poverty here and then destroy humans. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Because it is just, it pains me to see many people taking medicine. When you take 5 or 6 medicines, this medicine counteracts that one. So this one is tearing down your liver. This one is tearing down your eyesight. This one is tearing down your sex drive. This one is tearing down how you hear. This one is tearing down your taste buds. Guess what? These are all natural things that God has given you to be able to operate freely on this earth, to be productive and to live an abundant life. But you can't live this life if you're beaten down with all the wrong things to eat. And it's not the food, because anything in moderation is okay. But the problem is allowing people to just do anything to us. And that is because we really don't have the knowledge. And when I say knowledge, I mean the understanding of how powerful we truly are. Do you notice how nowadays it seems like the ignorance, the masses, the ignorance has allowed a voice? They've always been there. That's the funny thing. They've always been there. The ignorance has always been there. But we didn't allow them to have a voice.
That's right.
You know, you had a certain voice that spoke, and it spoke with morals, values, and standards. Now, anybody says anything, they're very disrespectful. They have no regard for life or love or even themselves. You know, so if I don't love me, I can't love you. I can't respect you.
I'm in trouble.
You know,
If you don't love yourself.
But then we say, well, who's to blame? Who's to blame? Everybody. You know that?
I take responsibilities. And that's why in my work, of course, I'm a sound voice, a sounding board that has to say these things and have to let people know. I think you're talking about politics. Much of that is driven by money.
Yeah, but it always been.
Always has been. And when people get in those offices, they a lot of times have good intentions.
Right.
But before they can get to a place of power, they have sold themselves and compromised so much that when they get there, they really don't, they've forgotten why they even started in the beginning.
But they can only do 2 of the things.
And so we need to be responsible too. They need to be responsible, and
Yeah.
we have to be responsible in putting people in these offices.
Yeah.
And that, again, because people don't take it seriously. And I understand many times I am having such a problem making ends meet, trying to make life work for me and for my family. I'm not really worried about politics. I'm not even
Right.
worried about maybe the additives in the
Right.
food. I'm not worried
Right.
about this kind of stuff because I'm on a daily grind just trying to make it. Someone was on television not so long ago, man, he had a job. He worked as a truck driver.
Okay.
He said at the end of the week, I have to decide if I'm going to pay a bill or feed my family.
Wow. That's
Because he was
insane.
just not, and he said that's what I have to confront myself with. So he didn't have time to see some of the other things that are happening around.
And that's,
because he's got to do
a distraction.
Yes, it
That
is.
is
It is.
part
Yes, it
of
is.
a bigger issue. And you know what? We don't fight against flesh and blood.
No,
It's not flesh
No,
and
it's
blood.
a spiritual
It's a
power,
spirit.
spiritual battle.
Yes, it is.
Yes, yes,
and
it
you know
is.
what? And that's the blinders that are on people, you know, and very few people have the knowledge, which is the light of God. Very few people have that. Like when you said hope,
yeah,
you know what? You have hope because you have that light on you.
Yeah.
And when you walk in it, people see it and they gravitate to you.
And it's my
they want
prayer that their eyes will become open. And that's one of the things that the Holy Spirit does. He opens our eyes because our eyes are blind.
Yes.
The scripture says that the natural man is blind
Yes.
to the things that are going on around.
Yes.
And he can't see. So our prayer is that you would listen, that you would hear the voice of God, that you would say, Lord, open my ears, open my eyes, let me see something. And like I said about not worrying about everything and letting go
Yes.
and let God.
Yes.
Now we say that it sounds so pretty to say,
Blase,
let go and let God, and
easy,
easy.
and
It's
we sure-
hard.
it's very hard.
So the story is the
Very hard.
little boy fell over the cliff, and he's hanging up there by the root of a tree. He's holding onto the root that's out from the rock, and he's holding it. Help, help, help. Is there anybody up there? And he says, help, help, is anybody up there? And finally, God says, I'm up here. He said, help, God, help me. And God says, let go. And he says, is there anybody else up there? It's hard for us to let go. Hard for us to go because we don't know what's going to happen. But you learn to trust God and say, okay, God, I'm going to try you. And I think that's one of my verses I like in the scripture says, oh, taste and see that the Lord is good.
Yeah.
Try it, you'll like it, you know,
Yes.
and but you have to come to that point where we try him. And so I pray for people, and I ask that God would open their eyes, that they would be observant and listen.
Yes.
Listen to their heart, listen to God speaking to them, and then begin to do the right thing. Stop just worrying about everything and trusting
And wouldn't
trusting God.
And wouldn't you say that in part of worry brings about sickness and
Sure it
disease?
does. Oh, indeed.
Now, I want
indeed.
you to hold that thought
Okay.
for 2 seconds, and we'll be right back because I want you to talk about your wonderful AIDS outreach ministry.
Okay. Fine.
And
Go
we'll
ahead.
be right back. welcome back. I know you are fired up and excited just like I am. And before we went to break, we were discussing health, and Reverend Doctor, he has a wonderful outreach ministry. Can you share what that is?
Yes, I work with an organization called New Hope for the World Ministries. Pastor Terrence Kennedy from New Hope Community Church in Harlem, which is across the street from my church on 126th Street, where I pastor, and he has we worked together over the years in New Hope for the World Ministries. I'm assistant director of the ministry, and primarily our work has been with HIV and AIDS, and in sharing, getting the word out, getting people to be tested. So we have a large event that we have each year called Reach Week in New York City. It's like the fourth, fourth week of September. Okay. And this is, we just completed our 8th year. And it's international. We bring people from different countries who come to be involved. So I've traveled in Japan and Germany and over in Africa. We have these, a lot of people come that week to sing gospel music. Okay. But also to learn and to hear of other things going on, and much of that is dealing with HIV and AIDS. We had the passion, in the 80s, and we just had so many people dying from AIDS. How did
it get started? How did you get to the passion?
Well, because we lost so many people that we knew and that we loved, and someone has to do something about it. And we just decided, Pastor Kennedy said, we need to do something about this. We need to explore this and see how we as ministers can help, because the church doesn't want to talk about HIV and AIDS because they have to talk about sex. And of course, the church doesn't want to talk about sex.
How about that?
But of course, we all got here
from sex.
So
that's natural.
And that's
God gave it to us.
Yes, and that's why these people a lot of people were getting sick, because they were having unprotected sex. And so you have to, you have to talk about it, but be realistic. Be realistic, because people are dying and needed to know their status, needed to know what they could do to help. And so this event, Reach Week, reaches out to people and shares with them. We do other events during the year as well. Just had an event for World AIDS Day on the December 1st, and we do a lot of different things to educate people and share with them. But Harlem, our zip code 10027, is one of the red spots today from the Board of Health in New York City. And it's troubled because people are just sleeping around and not taking care of themselves, not watching their status, and they don't realize that it's still a disease. Now, you don't have to get HIV. It can be prevented. You just know what to do. But they don't accept the knowledge, and they say, well, it won't happen to me. And of course it does. So we started, one of the things we did in our first year of ministry with Reach Week, about 20 ministers got online and got tested publicly. Nice. Going into Harlem United is one of the agencies in Harlem, and they had their van, and we went in there to be tested. Nice. And of course, with a quick swab test, in 20 minutes you can know your status. Yes. Well, to see ministers online says to the community, you don't have to be afraid. It took away some of the stigma, because we all have a past, we have a history, and what is going to be our outcome. And so we did that. The second year, Pastor Kennedy said, well, we ought to even see if we can do more. So we went to Harlem United, and they taught us how to do the quick swab test. And so there were about 12 of us took the course. So I'm certified to test for HIV. Awesome. And that, again, says a lot, because ministers can say some things that maybe the health persons can't say.
Right, the health department, that's right.
Yeah, well, you know, we can tell them, hey, you know, we'll pray for you, but then we could get them into care.
Well,
we could take them into an agency where they can get
How do you draw them in? I mean, do you have
Advertise.
Celebrity
sometimes, yes,
come in,
yes, yeah.
maybe a large sponsorship,
right,
you know?
Asking different agencies to help sponsor the event so that we can have monies to do it.
Right.
And again, this past year we had Dorothy Norwood, gospel singer, out there at the plaza when we did our event, and they were testing going on out there, but she was singing, of course, and we had Tremaine Hawkins to come as well to sing in concert.
Awesome.
Vicki Winans sang with us last year, and recorded with us, and so
nice.
those things are going on. So
and Pastor Donnie McClurkin.
Yeah, we had Pastor Donnie McClurkin who preached and shared with us, and so you know, again, that attracts a lot of people to come and to hear what we're saying. We gave away coats a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
Had a coat drive and
Awesome.
fed people, and then had testing. And so anything to get people to know their status, know who they are, what's happening with their lives, and all that. Like I said, most of the times you have the event, and a lot of times they're looking for numbers, of course, to see how many people you're attracting.
Right.
And now we sometimes we'll have a day when we had to go to the coats, we served dinner as well. We fed 100 people that day.
Nice.
And gave away coats, and the testing was going on.
Wow.
There are other times when we have days where we'll just have testing and soup. We have a soup kitchen, so we have people come in that can have soup and a sandwich, and then we also test, and we tell them, give them literature, and tell them to think about their status and what's happening. So you're continually trying to find ways to bring them in to be tested, and you know, I traveled to Africa quite a bit, to Uganda, East Africa.
Okay.
In fact, I established a church over there,
Oh,
the Baptist House of Prayer
awesome.
International over there. And when I first went there, the country was having a lot of problems, difficulties with AIDS, but over a 12-year period, they reached 1 year where they had no new cases.
Oh,
Uganda.
That's God.
Yes, Uganda.
That is
And they went through, the policy was A, B, C. Abstinence from sexual involvement. B, be monogamous, one partner. C, use a condom. And when I first went over there in 2000, all over the place you saw ABC, 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 and put it from the president on down, though. All the members of parliament, everybody got involved. And they were able to be there. So when Colin Powell went over there as our Secretary of State, he told President Bush about it, and he said, well, they're doing better than we're doing fighting this disease, but the whole country got involved because so many people had died, thousands had died, and grandparents were raising their children because the mother and father both were infected and had AIDS and died. And so that country, even today, their numbers are still very low because they realize that you have to do something. So now the big thing is, and education over there, they have school fees. And so last time I was there, they had this big billboard. This woman's sitting there looking at her husband, and he didn't come home last night. I wonder where was he, and make sure you get yourself tested. Or the kids have to pay the school fees, and so the other billboard said, do you know who your sugar daddy is?
Oof.
Because these sugar daddies would come, you want to be educated? I will pay for your education, but you got to sleep with me. And said, so this billboard keeps a reminder to these young people, do you know who your sugar daddy is or your sugar mommy? Because women were doing the same thing. And so these things, but, in our country, again, the pharmaceutical companies are glad for sicknesses and diseases because that's what they make.
Yes.
Scads of money.
Oh, yes.
But we really want to reach out and tell people that they can have a relationship, they can have a life, and they can be tested, and that they don't have to have HIV, AIDS, and meet us halfway. You can't dictate somebody's morals, but they can take it easy.
Yes.
They don't have to just be out there just carrying on and doing anything and everything, come on,
They're bored.
Yeah, but again, people are searching,
People are bored.
wanting, and they want love.
Yes.
and they want somebody to care for them, and all those things are very, very, very much important in our lives, and they help us. So we're excited about New Hope for the World Ministries, excited about working and helping people find a way. We've also tackled domestic violence, because a lot of times that has something to do also with HIV. That's very prevalent.
Of course.
And also now hepatitis C. We've had some seminars on that, teaching people how to know about hepatitis C and the dangers of it. It's happening now, and about the other STIs that you may have, you know. And so we're reaching out to people who sometimes the church does not want to talk to them and reach out to them about, you know. But it's also necessary, and to take away the stigma and take away the talking about it and realizing that it's real.
Let me stop you right there.
Yes.
We're going to go to break, and then we're going to have you finish that. And also, we want to discuss your singing career.
Oh, okay. We can do,
and we will be right back.
We can do some of that.
911, where's the emergency?
I'd like a pizza for delivery.
Ma'am, you've reached 911. This is an emergency line.
Large with half pepperoni, half mushroom.
Do you have an emergency or not?
Yes.
And you're unable to talk because...
Right.
Ma'am, is there someone in the room with you?
Yes.
Okay, I've sent an officer. Can you stay on the phone with me?
No. See you soon. Thank you.
Okay, so you were saying something about Patterson?
Yeah, when Governor Patterson was in office, we went with Harlem United and some other agencies to go and appeal to them in the state of New York to allow doctors to give the HIV test without it being a stigma again.
Right.
Because you weren't allowed to test.
Right.
And they had to get permission.
Right.
And they made a big thing out of it. You had to go into another room.
Right.
And it drew a lot of attention.
Right.
And they said, well, the doctor doesn't have to go through that to give you to test your high blood pressure.
Right.
He doesn't go through that to test your diabetes.
Right.
You know, so why should it have to go through all that to test your HIV status?
Right.
And the bill was, he signed the bill before he left the office, and we were very
Great guy,
pleased that we
too.
went to Albany, and we lobbied and talked to, you know, some of the senators and assemblymen there, assembly people there to help in that area, and the bill was passed.
Yeah.
So
it has, yeah.
those are the kind of things that you can do, and you have to be active and go after it. You can't, because things are just not going to happen.
No.
Anything that happens, somebody's got to make it happen, and get involved with it and have a passion about it. And so those are some of the things that we've done.
So now, shifting gears a little, tell us about your singing career.
Well, like I said earlier, I was singing since I was 3 years old, and I started voice lessons at 5. So I was always trained to sing, and I was grateful. My godmother was a music teacher, voice teacher, and so we did that. And so I've traveled quite a bit, you know, through my singing career. I said I've gone to Europe, Germany, Norway, over in Jerusalem, and then Africa. Now, the last several years, I've been going to Africa and doing the work over there, more preaching. And Japan, gone to Japan about 6, 7 times, singing over there and sharing with the people over there. They love African American gospel music.
Yes.
And they are becoming Christian
Yes.
because of our music.
Yes.
And this is great. And someone said,
Amen.
well, they try to take everything from us.
No.
They don't want to. I said, but wait a minute. When I was a child, I learned do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And almost all the notations in music are Italian, because the Italians had cornered the market on singing and voice and music and things like that. I said, and so we all imitated them. But we've come to a day when now we are being imitated. And, you know, imitation is one of the highest forms of flattery. So they're imitating us. They like our hoots and our hollers and our groans and our moans and our soul. But now when I go, I tell them why we sing the way we sing. Thine we are, blessed Jesus, Jesus, thou hast bought us, hallelujah, thine we are. Oh, keep us, Lord, from sin, befriend us, and keep us when we go astray. Yes, blessed Jesus, blessed Jesus, hear, oh, hear us when we pray. Oh, yes, my Jesus, blessed Jesus, thou hast bought us, hallelujah, thou hast bought us on Calvary. You paid the price and you bought us with your precious blood. You purchased us. Thou hast bought us. Thou hast bought us. Thou hast bought us. I belong to you. You belong to me. Thou hast bought us. Thine. Yeah. And what was the background? Because of our slavery and because of the stripes on our back, and we couldn't speak, but we could sing, and we could moan, and we could groan, and God heard those cries, and he interpreted them. One of the spirituals said, I'm going to tell God how you treated me one of these days. Every tear I had to shed, every time my heart had bled, I'm going to tell God how you treated me one of these days. Or I can't go to your house and sit in, I can't go to the big house. I got to sit out in the field. I work out there, but one day when I get there, I'm going to sit at the welcome table one of these days. I'm going to feast on milk and honey one of these days. Because that's my release. That's my home is over Jordan. This world is not my home. I'm going to go where it's better. And many code songs that we sang. You know, we sing wade in the water, God's going to trouble the water, and we use that as baptism. But also, when you were in the water, running away, the dogs couldn't catch your scent. And so wade in the water, children. God's going to trouble the water, you know, and all those things. So I share with them a lot of African-American history behind our songs and the meaning of the songs. I tell them all the time about the Big Dipper, always pointed north, and we were told to follow the Big Dipper to find north if we were running away. But we couldn't say, follow the Big Dipper.
Right, because
but
you
we
didn't know
sang,
what to call it.
Follow the drinking gourd. Now, the drinking gourd was, you know, when they took the squash, cut it, took the meat out of it, and let it dry, and they used that as a drinking gourd. But it looked like the dip, so you followed the drinking gourd. It's a mighty long road, but it'll get you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd.
And it's so funny because the Egyptians are the ones who started all of that.
Absolutely.
And we know that the Egyptians
are African. Because most people don't want to admit that. They don't say that.
Well, that's because it's strategic. And then, you know,
but
boy, can I just tear that apart for 20 minutes.
Used music as the vehicle to reach people and to tell them about the wonderful relationship we have with God, and that, you know, music, the angels sang at Jesus' birth, they sang during creation. Singing is, you know, I think St. Augustine said, he who sings prays twice.
Yes.
And, you know, singing is a gift, and I thank God for the gift.
Oh, yes.
And I'm able to use it wherever I can to touch people's lives.
Well, Reverend, it has been a pleasure talking with you. I don't want to cut you off, but, you know, time just
goes
flies.
by. Yes,
but
it does.
I would like for you to sing something to take us out. I hope that you were inspired today by the many things that was said here today. It was a pleasure speaking with Reverend Dr. Henry Harrison from the Baptist House of Prayer in Harlem. You know, it is awesome to hear things like this, and it's also awesome that someone who said yes to God moved through this earth, and every place that he went, he brought the kingdom of heaven with him just because he said that one word, yes. And then he got into an alignment with God. And from there, he has been able to impact not only the community here in America, but different communities everywhere that his sole of his feet has gone. So, Reverend, I thank you. I'm very honored that you were here with us today.
Thank you for
and I would
having me.
like for you to take us out with a wonderful song.
Okay, well, it's a cappella song. I'm thinking particularly this year, a lullaby.
Okay.
And it was written by Robert Grimsley, but it's a lullaby about Jesus and sung from a black mother's perspective about her little boy she's singing to and relating it to Jesus. So, sweet little Jesus boy, they made you be born in a manger. Sweet little holy child, we didn't know who you was. Didn't know you come to save us, Lord, to take our sins away. Our eyes was blind, we couldn't see. We didn't know who you was. Long time ago, you was born in a manger low, you sweet little Jesus boy. The world treats you mean, Lord, treat me mean too, but that's how things is down here. We didn't know 'twas you. You done told us how we is a trying, Master. You done showed us how, even when you was dying. Oh, just seems like we can't do right. Look how we treated you. But please, sir, forgive us, Lord. We didn't know 'twas you. So sweet little Jesus boy, born a long time ago. Sweet little holy child. And we don't know who you is.
Wow. Wow. Ooh, thank you. Thank you. That was beautiful.
God bless you. Thank you.
Acapella.
Thank you. And
So I hope you
Okay.
be encouraged, be inspired,
yes.
but mostly be transformed.
Amen.
Why settle for no when yes is available?
Amen.
Bye-bye.